In the meantime, let's just bring you some breaking news on the UK economy. And we've just had the latest GDP or growth figures. So let's go straight to our economics editor, Ed Conway, now. So, Ed, tell us about these figures. What do they tell us?
So we every month we get an update on how the economy is doing. GDP is basically that kind of best measure of how much output we're creating. What does that mean? It means the amount of cash, the amount of activity that's going on in the economy. It's kind of the best measure of overall activity. There are some people who have question marks over GDP, but nonetheless, gives you a sense of how we're doing. And this is the metric we use to work out whether the UK is in recession. Well, we get it every month these days, and the latest month's numbers have just come in for November, and they show that the economy grew by 0.3% in November, which is actually quite good. It's better than expected. Economists have been thinking maybe, or the kind of consensus of economists was maybe 0.2% growth. But it's worth saying the previous month it actually fell by 0.3%. And so take a step back, and broadly speaking, the UK economy is flatlining. I mean, that's the big picture here. And this doesn't really change that. Does it mean that there is a chance of the UK falling into recession? Well, yes, statistically, because the previous quarter, the technical definition of recession is 2 quarters of successive contraction. So the economy shrinking, us getting less well off for 2 quarters in a row. The previous quarter, the economy did contract. There were some numbers that came in that were revised on that. This quarter, most economists think actually the economy should grow. But the big question is what happens for those December numbers. But most people think that actually ahead of Christmas, there was a bit more spending, there was a bit more activity. Interest rates were, in terms of the mortgage rates, were starting to come down for fixed rate mortgages. So they think that maybe things did improve a little bit then. But as I say, take a step back, and it's not like you're looking at this economy and saying it's racing ahead. It is basically flatlining and has been flatlining for quite some time. These numbers don't change that, but on the bright side, they are a little bit better than expected, which is good news. They could have been worse, and they do mean that the UK, it has quite a good chance of avoiding recession, which is not nothing, given that you have many economies around Europe which are facing recession and which have faced recession this year. The Chancellor said, while it's welcome news, it'll be slower as we bring in, so growth will be slower as we bring inflation back to its 2% target. So the Chancellor looking at these numbers as well. But as I say, the big question is what happens in the following month? Do we see those numbers dip down? Most economists think, fingers crossed, they shouldn't.